So remember a couple of weeks ago when I told y'all about Purpose at Steppenwolf? Yeah, that's the play everybody's been talking about, not just me. The one showcasing the drama of a fictional Black Chicago family full of esteemed civil rights leaders, pastors, and congresspeople. Yeah, now we on the same page. Well, people have been raving about it so much that the run has been extended again through mid-May. The Sun-Times, the Daily Herald, and the Trib have all given Purpose 4 stars, with the Trib calling it the birth of a truly great new Chicago play. So, don't wait to go see it. The show must close May 12th, and tickets start at $20 at steppenwolf.org. That's steppenwolf.org. Today on CityCast Chicago, the Back of the Yards neighborhood is still recovering from a tragic mass shooting over the weekend. Chicago's Pride Parade is being forced to downsize, and the Skies celebrate their champion draft picks. Joining me to break it all down from WTTW, Joanna Hernandez, and freelance writer for the Windy City Times, Jake Wittich. It's Friday, April 19th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Joanna, welcome back to CityCast Chicago.
Feels nice to be back. Hello.
Jake, welcome back to the podcast. Long time, my friend, but we're glad to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Glad to be talking to you again.
Excited to have y'all both here. Before we get started with our stories from the week, earlier this week in our newsletter, Hey Chicago, our fantastic editor, Sydney Madden, put together a little quick guide for how you can enjoy 420 this weekend. And if you ain't familiar, 420 is a celebration of all things weed, all things cannabis, all things marijuana, depending on how you like to name it. And I wanted to know, how are y'all spending this most sacred holiday? Jake, I want to start with you. What's your plans for 420?
Yeah, I am going to be chilling. Me and my best friend, we have plans. We're going to Swing by Sway, which is a brand new dispensary that just opened in North Halsted. It's Black and brown owned, it's queer owned, it's the first in the state like that. So we're going to probably buy a couple pre-rolls, go back to his place and play video games and eat snacks. I'm really looking forward to it.
Come on. What's your favorite video game to play when you're high?
I don't know. I like cozy video games. I play like farming simulators. We'll probably play a round of Mario Party or Mario Kart, something like that.
I love that. I got Mario Kart on Nintendo, and I'm not gonna lie, after 1,000 ads being served on my phone, I downloaded like a farm simulator game. I love it, G.
Yeah.
I'm out here selling chicken eggs, like, oh, that's my hustle on the corner. I'm out here doing it. Joanna, what about you? What are you doing for 420? Is chilling in your plans?
Definitely chilling. Jake, I'm going to have to go check out that dispensary. I usually leave it all up to my wife to pick out the strains of weed and what the marijuana that we're going to smoke. So she usually comes home with like different varieties and she's like, smell this, smell that. What does this smell? She's like, does this smell like cupcake? Whatever. You know, there's so many different like varieties. So that's usually like, you know, what we do and just like chill, watch Netflix, watch one of our shows and just like spend time together with our dogs. So that's maybe if it's nice, we'll go for a walk.
But you finna get wined and dined for 420. She pull up with the tray of all the goodies. All you got to do is experience it.
Experience it and chill and enjoy it. And then just laugh a lot.
No, exactly. I'm excited for 420. I'm going to be spending the day with my homie Darius, one of my best friends. We go back years, all the way to the point when we was like putting our money together for some Reggie. And now, you know, we're going to walk into Grasshopper Club here on Roosevelt and do our thing. But then we're heading over to Cherry Mountains Arts Gallery, which is one of my favorite art galleries in the city. And they're moving from, I think, West Town to West Loop. So not very far, but they're having an estate sale, which means all of the art got to go. All of the books got to go. All of the old clothes that they got to go discounted. And so I don't know if I'm going to be in the proper state to go in there and be, you know, frugal. So I don't know if it's a great idea, right? Most people are like, I don't want to go somewhere and overeat. I'm about to go and overspend on some fantastic things. And so shout out to Cherry Mountain Art. Shout out to Grasshopper Club. Shout out to All Things 420. And I also want to know from y'all, everyone listening, if you are somebody who get down with the get down and, you know, for you 420 happen 2 times a day, you know, let us know what you're doing by hitting us up at 773-780-0246.
Love that.
If you are new to CityCast Chicago, every single Friday we bring in some amazing voices, our friends from across the city, to talk about the stories that they were following this week. We're getting started with a heavy and heartbreaking story out of Back of the Yards. This past weekend, as friends and family gathered outside of their home off of 52nd and Damon, 3 gunmen walked up about a half a block away and opened fire, hitting 11 people ranging from 1 year old to 40 years old, and killing 9-year-old Ariana Molina. We have seen vigils this week. Obviously, the mayor's office has put out a statement. We've seen the community try to come together for some semblance of remembrance. But there was a lot of heartbreak, tears, and anger out on 52nd and Damon this week. Joanna, what is the latest on this absolute tragedy?
Really the latest. I mean, police are still trying to figure out the motive behind this. And, we just got to see that taunting, scary video of these 3 gunmen walking up in the middle of the night. It was 9 p.m. And you just see them firing their guns. And I think it's even more even worse just to know that there was a 9-year-old little girl who was struck in the head among other kids just playing outside, right? It was a beautiful day. And just to think that, these 3 men just walked up and just shot about over 18 rounds. I mean, can you just even think about that and how daunting and just how sad it has to be for that entire family in that neighborhood? I mean, I remember knowing that the mom was also shot, and we saw the interview with the father that he couldn't even tell his wife that his daughter had died. I mean, that is just so tragic, but also just again, another reminder of just how gun violence is taking over our city, because I know it's not just these children, it's many other children who've also paid the price, unfortunately.
And I mean, the paranoia that this creates, I think, is one of the things we don't talk about enough. Obviously, at this point, we are heartbroken and we mourn with this family. Good Kids, Mad City, an organization that is at the forefront of having conversations around gun violence of all types in this city, kind of put out a statement earlier this week that, we are raised to believe that young kids are going to have to carry the burden of burying their parents, and that parents having to bury their kids, especially after a senseless murder like this, is something that families don't move on from, that they need their families, their loved ones, their communities to wrap their arms around them. And obviously there is no sort of quick solvency to these problems. There is no remedy or no quick Band-Aid here. But I think one thing that I found some comfort in is how quickly the Community Safety Coordination Center, like the emphasis the city seems to be putting on these wraparound services and making it clear to communities what is available after these tragedies. Everything from, providing more resources for the schools in the neighborhood, financial support for the family of the child who passed away, and other victim services for families, as well as an emergency services assistance center that was in the neighborhood this week. It, obviously, folks are calling for the police to do a thorough investigation to find the motive, to find the gunman. But it's also good to see how much the city is pushing resources into these wraparound services, because healing obviously is so much more than, the criminal legal system.
And you know what, Jacoby, you said something that just, so I've done a lot of work on this. I follow a lot of families who lost loved ones to gun violence. And I have been really focusing on that mental toll that it takes on the family, right? Because it's just not that they lost their loved one. It completely changes their lives. But touching on the wraparound services, I always question, why does something have to happen for the city to bring out immediate wraparound services? I think there's a larger topic to talk about why is there not enough mental resources or mental health facilities in these neighborhoods.
I hear you.
So yes, it's great that the city did this for this neighborhood, but it's another reminder that we really need mental facilities in many of these neighborhoods.
This episode is brought to you by ShipStation. If you run an e-commerce business, you know how much work it takes to produce something great while dealing with complicated shipping issues. That's why over 130,000 companies have turned to ShipStation. an innovative tool that allows you to focus less on shipping and more on building your brand. With ShipStation, you can manage orders, label printing, reporting, and customer service on one easy-to-use dashboard. You'll reduce warehouse costs with reliable enterprise solutions and save thousands on shipping costs with discounts up to 89% off. Plus, you can effortlessly import orders from everywhere you sell online. So, turn your shipping challenges into opportunities for growth. Go to ShipStation.com and use code POD to sign up for your free 60-day trial. That's ShipStation.com, code POD.
Jake, I want to come over to you. We are still 2.5 months out from one of the biggest events of summertime shy, and that is the North Halstead Pride Parade. Yet, while event coordinators should be finalizing plans to welcome nearly 1 million people to the neighborhood, they're having to deal with the headache of turning potential participants away. Jake, can you catch us up on what's going on here?
Yeah, so last week I broke the news that the Pride Parade this year is going to be downscaled by almost 40%. The city is forcing a cap at 125 entries this year, which is significantly less than the 200 that marched in the parade last year. Last week, there were still a lot of outstanding questions. The city simply said that there were safety and logistical concerns, but didn't really expand on what those concerns were. But this week, I got a little bit more information. I talked to Alderman Bennett Lawson, who is the Lakeview alderman. The parade passes through Uptown, Lakeview, and Lincoln Park. And Alderman Bennett Lawson is one of 9 LGBTQ identifying alderpeople on city council. And what he told me is it really comes down to police staffing and limited resources that the city has to handle such large scale events. We've got a lot of stuff happening in the city this summer. The Pride Parade is set for June 30th, which is just before, it's the same week as 4th of July. It's a weekend before the Chicago NASCAR race. We also have the Democratic National Convention coming up.
You know, we've seen multiple summertime staples have to adjust their schedules, whether because of something like, you know, another event is on that weekend or police have said their resources are stretched thin.
Exactly. The city regularly cancels police day offs and gives them a lot of overtime to staff such events. So I think it's an effort to do less of that this summer or manage their resources better. Another thing they're doing is they're shifting the Pride Parade so it starts at 11 a.m. as opposed to noon. I've heard some from faith communities that they're a little stressed about that because there's the Coalition of Welcoming Churches in Chicago, and they like to hold Pride services because the parade happens on a Sunday every year. They like to hold services and then go march in the parade afterward, so there's some concerns there. But it really comes down to shifting the parade start time so it better aligns with police shift changes. Alderman Lawson told me there's essentially 3 shifts they need to staff throughout the day. There's the parade itself, then there's the hours after the parade, and then there's the late night hours where there does tend to be a little bit of mayhem. Last year, the Sun-Times reported there were street takeovers. So that's really where it comes down to. But because of these restrictions, the parade organizers have already started informing certain people that they're not going to be in the parade this year. And that includes 5 private schools, and then Nettlehorst, which is it's a part of Chicago Public Schools, and it's the first school to ever march in the Pride Parade. They're in the parade this year. So what I uncovered this week as well is that the parade organizers are now working to find a way to group those private schools in the same entry as Nettlehorst so that they can all march. So that's kind of the latest update.
I was going to ask, how are decisions being made about who to turn away? Is it, you know, we want to get the most amount of inclusiveness across representatives? Was it these people had their applications in early or they have more longstanding relationships? How do you go about informing 37%, 40% of your prior year participants that, hey, you gonna be on the sideline with everybody else?
Yeah, the organizers tell me that they're prioritizing LGBTQ-owned businesses, LGBTQ organizations like Howard Brown Health, the Center on Halstead, places like that, and LGBTQ employee resource groups. But where they're making cuts this year is they're trying to consolidate the number of politicians that are marching in the parade this year. They're going to keep it limited to mostly the LGBTQ politicians, which we have a lot in this in the city. And we'll see when the lineup is finalized. That should be closer to June, who's in and who's out. But as of now, there's almost 100 groups on the wait list. But organizers have told me that every LGBTQ group that has marched in the parade last year will be included again this year. But there's also a lot of outstanding questions like where did this decision come from? And that's what I'm still trying to figure out.
And they've known about the DNC for almost a year at this point. Like they've understood. Y'all keep signing these contracts, right? Y'all keep bringing in NASCAR. Y'all understand what the schedule is like. And so at the least, why are we telling people in March?
Yeah, they found out in mid-March. They had 3 months to adjust plans. And then my question is, yeah, we're really booked this summer. How are they deciding which events get cut? Is every parade facing new restrictions? And then who made this decision? Were LGBTQ groups consulted on this? I'm curious, the mayor has a new LGBTQ advisory council. Were they consulted on this decision? Were the 9 LGBTQ alder people included in this? So those are some questions I'm trying to get answers on.
Yeah, I just saw that Atavia Reed wrote that Inglewood's Back to School Parade, a tradition that's been around since 1961, has been canceled as the police prepare for the DNC. And so some parades have just been outright turned away from being able to participate. But we will continue to figure out how the summertime Shy schedule is impacted across the city as we welcome in, some events that annoy people, some events that, people are absolutely excited for. And honestly, the same event might cover both categories depending who you are. Again, I am here with WTTW's Joanna Hernandez and freelance writer with the Windy City Times, Jake Wittich. Every Friday, we're not only talking about the stories that dominated headlines this week, we also want to draw some attention to stories that might not have got the same amount of attention. And Joanna, I want to bring it to you because even as the flow of new migrants and new arrivals to Chicago has slowed for a bit, it is going to pick up as we get closer to the DNC. Believe that. Obviously, so much care is still needed, including, most importantly, money, affordable housing, language, job, and education resources. But even as the city council delayed a vote this week on an additional $70 million, we're continuing to see community members fill some of those gaps for people. And Joanna, you told one such story recently about a pastor in Belmont Cragen who is Reverend Jonathan De La O.
Oh, yes. I love doing these kind of stories because it just really shine lights on just the community, right? And what people are doing to help other people. So this is a pastor. He has a church called Starting Point Community Church in Belmont Cragen. And last year he saw more people coming from Venezuela. He went to his local police station. Of course, he saw numerous people sleeping there for weeks and, at a time. So he decided to open his church and make room for a group of men. He's been housing 20 men at a time. So his whole system is men come. Of course, they try to find jobs and then they try to find more stable housing. But within that group, there's a very talented young man called Jason Perez. He's a 31-year-old who came from Venezuela last year. And as he was staying there, he started to draw, and the pastor noticed his talent. And he told this individual, like, hey, like, you should start drawing about your experiences. And then Jason was like, oh, can I do an exhibit? Can I work on an exhibit? So I went there. I was blown away by these paintings. Honestly, they depict his journey through the jungle. So one of them is like really a young boy just sitting in the middle of the jungle with scrapes. And then there's a variety of paintings that he makes about their journey. And it's all about the feelings that people go through as they're traveling through the jungle to get to America. So it really impacted me. And I think it's a good way and a reminder that it's not just only, I think the news, sometimes we just continue to talk about money and the bad, and kind of we forget about the human touch, that these are people who are also coming for opportunities, and they've gone through so much trauma, and this is just a very young, talented man. So I hope someone sees his paintings and gives him an opportunity, maybe in some gallery, because they're honestly, you have to see them. They're honestly really good.
Are they still available, or were they only available to see, like, given that, like, on that particular event or weekend?
I believe it was last weekend that he had like an open show, an exhibit. But I did say that I was going to help him and send him out to some galleries to see if there's anything that could come out of that, because I went in there and I was like, wow, I was blown away. They're like mural type of paintings.
I appreciate the stories that have been produced that highlight how people have tried to retain, express their culture, but also share their story, whether across a language barrier or through their arts. It has been, like you said, a bright spot in some of the coverage that is largely focused on and necessarily the hardships that many of these people are facing once they get to the city. So yeah, I appreciate you telling this story. We're going to drop a link in the show notes to your piece with the Reverend. All of the things we've talked about today, you can find links in the show notes to learn more. Every single episode of CityCast Chicago ends with some good news. This is our opportunity to send you out the door with a little bit of positivity, an event, a moment of joy, something you're looking forward to. Jake, I'm going to stay with you. What is your good news for our CityCast listeners today?
Yeah, so a little over a month ago, with the Windy City Times, a great team of people, we launched a newsletter called Chicago Social Butterflies, and it's essentially a queer events calendar. It's super fun. If you haven't checked it out yet, I definitely recommend it. And the good news is that in just about 5 weeks, we surpassed 1,000 subscribers. So I'm really proud of that. It speaks to how fun the newsletter is and how there is a need for this. A lot of people feel disconnected from the community, or there's so much going on, they don't know where to find out. I often will write a story and people are like, why didn't I know about that? Well, now you can know.
Go to chicagosocialbutterflies.com. I mean, you here, so I got to put you to work a little bit. What's an event you're looking forward to this weekend that you can find on the newsletter?
Tonight, I'm going to be at Sidetrack. It's Gerber Hart's. They're a library and archives. They're pretty prominent here in Chicago. If you're not aware of them, I recommend looking them up. But their gala is tonight. So it's their spring soiree. I'm going to be going to that, and excited to hear kind of recent changes at Gerber Hart and what they're looking forward to in the next year.
I did a story on them because they had a podcast talking about, they had a podcast about their history of like just lesbian history in Chicago.
Unboxing queer history.
Yes. So I loved going into their library and I had no idea there was a whole like fishing crew that would go out to Wisconsin, and it was all lesbians, and there would be a newspaper where they were kind of code like, hey, they were having this lesbian event because, at that time you couldn't be out. So they would go out and like camp, and then it was so interesting. I thought it was so cool.
It's really cool. Like, if you can check out the archives, please go make a visit. There's so much history in there from Chicago, untold history. And check out that podcast. It's called Unboxing Queer History. The first season came out, I think maybe 2 years ago, but there is a second season in the works.
Beautiful. Joanna, what is your some good news?
I gotta do with you.
Thank you.
I want to talk about the Chicago sky.
Hello.
Let's talk about it. I am excited to have these two players. I think, I think lately, we've been talking about, it's about time that WNBA gets the recognition that they deserve.
Mm-hmm. Women's basketball in general getting the recognition it deserves.
Women's basketball in general. So I'm really excited to see Angel Reese and Kamala Cardoso coming to Chicago Sky. I feel like that's going to be awesome. It's just so exciting to just kind of see like the hype around it.
I agree.
I mean, it might be bigger than the Bulls, maybe.
I mean, right now they put up some stats. They might keep they season going, but yes, all of the anticipation in Chicago's basketball community right now is around this. And as much as CC, Caitlin Clark, got a lot of attention right throughout this entire run, I think that the Chicago Sky have the biggest story coming out of the draft, because they didn't just get one national champion. Right, this year's tournament MVP in Camilla from South Carolina, but also they went and got the Bayou Barbie, whose team last year won a championship. And the story that TTW put out this week, the fact that these women have been competing against each other, battling not only just the last few years in college, but since high school on the AAU circuit.
Now they're going to be playing on the same team.
Angel Reese put out a tweet earlier this week that basically said her favorite part of being in New York for the draft was connecting with all of these women who she, for the last 4 years, has just been competing with, talking big cash shit on court. And yet their camaraderie highlights their competitiveness. And so to see these two people, I've been going around calling them the Sisters of Destruction all week, sort of a play on Undertaker and Kane from the WWE, these two tall brothers who just wreak destruction across WWE. You ain't getting into the lane against these two. You ain't getting no easy shots against the Sisters of Destruction. And so, you know, I'm also excited because of how small the WNBA still is. They're still expanding. It is tough for rookies to stay on a team. So many amazing players end up out of the league, whether in training camp or going into the next couple of years of their career. And these two individuals, Angel and Camilla, they just seem like they're going to not only hang around in the league, but make an impact. And I'm hoping that they can have a shared story in Chicago for however long we can have it, because even the Sky can't have nice things for too long. But this is a new chapter, and I'm excited.
It's a new chapter. I hope that's a new chapter for just women's basketball, and also just raising awareness on like the disparities in salaries. Like, that was insane to me for me to read. I think everyone read it. That, you know, starting off, I think Caitlyn was going off at what, $76,000?
Yeah. And yet them tickets, shout out to my boy Pope. Brandon Pope hit me in the DM just that he was like, hey, I'm going to be supporting from the couch. Just same with the Bulls. Because I can't afford to go, I can't go see no team now.
Watching a game in Chicago Sky was only sometimes it was as low as $20.
I'm seeing $250 to $1,000 tickets. Yes. You know what? I'm gonna get my $3 White Sox tickets and walk myself down to the first row with everybody else. But hey, I will be watching, and I'm extremely excited for the future. The Sky was an up and down off season, but this is a fantastic way. I'm gonna need me a couple jerseys ASAP.
Let's go, Chicago Sky.
I'm going to close us out with an event I've been wanting to talk about all week, but it is finally getting started, and that's Chicago's 19th annual Center Youth Film Festival. It runs today through Sunday at Facets in Lincoln Park, and the festival celebrates filmmakers under the age of 22. There will be in-person and virtual screenings, so if you can't make it, go ahead, still check out the website. They're also going to have some really cool creative workshops that people can participate in. So to get all of the information and the full lineup, you already know where to go. The same place where all of these amazing stories will find new life, and that is in our show notes. But before we go, I had to give one more huge thank you to WTTW's Joanna Hernandez. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for making time.
You too. So nice to be here. Until next time, hasta la otra.
Until next time, I want to give a huge thanks to the homie, Jake Wittich. Thank you for making time for CityCast Chicago. It means the world to us.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Can't wait to be back soon.
Before we get out of here, I want to give one huge thank you to the people who make CityCast Chicago possible. Our executive producer is Simone Alisea. Our producer is Michelle Navarro. Our Hey Chicago newsletter editor is Sydney Madden. We had extra help this week from roving editor Adrian Gonzalez. And the music we all love is from All the Kimonos, Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop, and the homie Sam Thousand. And my last thank you is for you, the people who make time to read Hey Chicago, who listen to CityCast Chicago, probably on 2x speed while using the bathroom in the morning. But hey, a download is a download, a listen is a listen, a fan is a fan, and I am grateful. If you want to do me one more favor, share the show with all of your group chats and be back here bright and early on Monday. I'm going to talk to you then. Peace.